Hello there, my name is Artie, and it's once again Halloween, my favourite time of the year. Last year I went over some of the times that I've been most scared in my life, and I'm sad to say that I haven't really been scared much more since then. Well, actually, there was one time, and that's what we're talking about today. Thing is, this scare was different. The ones I talked about last time were just from dread, shock, or something similar. The scare I'm about to talk about is on a much more existential horror level. Today we're talking about the scariest piece of music I've ever heard, and that you probably haven't. Hidden Sea Buried Deep, from Everywhere at the End of Time. You may have actually heard of this album before. Created by the Caretaker, also known as Leland James Kirby, and released in 6 stages from 2016 to 2019, it's a musical representation of the stages of dementia, specifically Alzheimer's disease. Each of the 6 stages in the album represent a different stage of dementia, and I'll quickly go over them all here so you're not lost on me later. Stage 1 is comprised of oldies ballroom music. It's actually pretty nice, albeit a little creepy. This is the first stage of dementia where all of a patient's memories are intact. The Caretaker himself describes this stage as being most like a beautiful daydream, the glory of old age and recollection, the last of the great days. I used the first song from this stage, It's Just a Burning Memory, in my terrible ARG, The Boris Files. Stage 2 is pretty much the same, but it's got some extra crackle. Overall, it's still pretty much normal, but now you can tell something is up. The Caretaker's description notes that the second stage is the self-realization and awareness that something is wrong, with a refusal to accept that. More effort is made to remember, so memories can be more long-form, with a little more deterioration in quality. The overall personal mood is generally lower than the first stage, and at a point before confusion starts setting in. Stage 3 is when you can tell something is really wrong. There are still cohesive melodies and songs, but there's a lot more crackle and a bit of distortion here and there. Here's the Caretaker's description. Here we are presented with some of the last coherent memories before confusion fully rolls in and the grey mists form and fade away. Finest moments have been remembered, the musical flow in places is more confused and tangled. As we progress, some singular memories become more disturbed, isolated, broken and distant. These are the last embers of awareness before we enter the post-awareness stages. Stage 4 is where music disappears and panic sets in. I should note that all stages from here onwards are referred to as post-awareness stages, where the dementia patient's condition is so bad that they can't even remember they have Alzheimer's anymore. This stage has barely any coherence whatsoever, containing mostly just distorted noise. This is what the Caretaker has to say about it. Post-awareness stage 4 is where serenity and the ability to recall singular memories gives way to confusions and horror. It's the beginning of an eventual process where all memories begin to become more fluid through entanglements, repetition, and rupture. While Stage 4 still retained a tiny trace of rationality, Stage 5 has no coherence whatsoever. It's still distorted noise, but there's just something about it that makes it more horrifying than Stage 4. The Caretaker's description is as follows. Post-awareness Stage 5, confusions and horror. More extreme entanglements, repetition and rupture can give way to calmer moments. The unfamiliar may sound and feel familiar. Time is often spent only in the moment, leading to isolation. Stage 6 is the final stage. It's mostly just white noise at this point, with the loud distortions disappearing at the end of Stage 5. In the last 10 minutes, however, angelic music begins playing in representation of terminal lucidity, a state in the last few days of a dementia patient's life where they may experience a mental clarity and be able to remember information that was previously lost. Then, in the last 5 minutes of stage 6, there is silence. The patient has died. The caretaker's description of this stage is chilling to the very core. Post-awareness stage 6 is without description. So, that's a brief overview of Everywhere at the End of Time. It's an incredible album, and it's something I would definitely recommend listening to in full one day, provided you're in the mental state where you're able to do that. It really is an experience, and trust me, it'll change your outlook on a lot of things. But we're not here to talk about the whole album, just one track in particular, which I believe to be the most existentially terrifying one on the album, and from what you've just heard, I'm sure you can agree that that is a difficult title to receive. Stage 3 is honestly one of the creepiest stages to me, right behind stage 5 and next to stage 4. While not as uncomfortable to listen to as those two stages, that uncomfort being the main horror of them, stage 3's slight distortions are what really gets me spooked. Just something about it being mostly normal, with only a few short pieces being wrong, makes me feel like I'm going insane, which I think was exactly what the caretaker was trying to capture here. Most, if not all, of the tracks in stage 3 make my skin crawl, but there's one specific track that sends a chill down my spine whenever I hear it. And that track is Hidden Sea Buried Deep, the third track of stage 3 of Everywhere at the End of Time. It's not very long, so I'll play it in its entirety now. Alright, we'll stop it there. I think you get the idea. And I don't want to listen to it any longer. Seriously, I can barely listen to it in half without crapping myself. Let's take a quick breather before we start picking this thing apart. Whew. Okay, everyone feeling better? Good, let's begin. So, Hidden Sea Buried Deep is comprised of one piano riff, which was sampled from, and this is a bit of a handful, piano medley of Layton and Johnstone's Successes Intro. Many of the tracks in Everywhere at the End of Time are actually sampled, such as the most prominent motif taken from Heartaches by Sid Phillips that's seen in various places across different stages. See? Same samples. In fact, let's derail a bit to talk about why the samples would be reused. What with the main underlying theme of dementia in the album and trying your hardest to grasp onto memories, more effort is made to remember from the stage 2 description, it's really not that difficult to see that the reoccurring samples are representative of these memories, which are degrading over time. In the case of Heartaches, it's loud and clear in stage 1, but for a bit of vinyl crackle. By the time we get to stage 3, however, there's significantly more distortion, with some areas being too loud or too quiet, some areas having the wrong rhythm, and some areas being entirely engulfed by distortion. Heartaches especially represents a memory that the dementia patients hold dear to them, and one that they're trying their hardest to remember, so it really is terrifying hearing that memory degrade. This theme is also present in some of the caretaker's previous work, persistent repetition of phrases, for example. Anyway, let's get back on track. Hidden Sea, Buried Deep uses that theme of trying to hold on to its advantage, with the entire song consisting of a simple 10-second piano melody repeating 6 times in a row before moving on to the next track. And yet, despite its simplicity, it is terrifying. It's clear that the dementia patient is once again trying to hold on to a memory, or even part of a memory, as the piano riff playing isn't the full song, just the intro. The patient repeats the memory in their head, trying to get a good grasp on it, but it slips out of their mind as indicated by the track ending. While it's certainly not the most grating, uncomfortable, or typically scary track in Everywhere at the End of Time, Hidden Sea, Buried Deep is one that perfectly represents the existential horror that this album is teeming with, and it shows everything that the album has to offer. It's simultaneously incredible and yet horrifying. I cannot truly express in words what this single track, let alone the entire album, represents, and how much of an absolute masterpiece it is. Everywhere at the End of Time is as beautiful as it is sad. It makes you think about life and how important memories are, and even though the person in the story is forgetting things, there are still moments of happiness and joy that shine through. As I said earlier, it is something I'd highly recommend listening to if you're mentally able to do so. I can almost promise that it will change your perspective drastically on a lot of things. For example, I have a whole new outlook on dementia and Alzheimer's disease, and I've got a new sympathy for those afflicted by it. Well, that was a lot to unpack, but thank you all for sticking through it. I really hope you enjoyed and that you'll consider giving Everywhere at the End of Time a quick listen. It's 6 hours long, it's not going to be quick. Give it a listen though. Thanks heaps for watching, happy Halloween, and I'll see you at some point in the future. Goodbye.